You said the last one will be different. Different face, different personality, different promises. But somehow, the ending felt exactly the same. The same confusion, the same emotional exhaustion, the same heartbreak. And now you are sitting there wondering why do I keep attracting the same type of person? But what if it's not attraction? What if it is recognition? What if your heart keeps choosing what your nervous system mistakes for love? Stay with me, because this conversation might explain patterns you have been blaming on bad luck for years. My name is Letitia Idiri, and on this channel, we have conversations most people avoid. Conversations about healing, conversations about relationship, self-worth, human psychology, and emotional patterns silently shaping our lives. So if you have ever felt trapped in cycles you don't fully understand, then this video is for you. So there was a woman who swore she would never date another emotionally unavailable person again. Guess what? She said she was done. She was done crying over people who could not communicate their emotions, communicate how they felt. She was done waiting for consistency from people who only showed effort when they were afraid of losing her. I mean, she was done confusing emotional confusion with love. And for a while, she really meant it. She started focusing on herself. She was reading books, staying away from relationship. Then one day, she met someone new. And at first, it felt different. He was calm, attractive, mysterious. He spoke softly. He listened carefully. He made her feel seen. But slowly, old patterns started showing up. Delayed replies became emotional distance. Hot and cold behavior became inconsistency. Lack of clarity became confusion. But instead of walking away, he explained his behavior to her. Maybe he's just busy. Maybe he's scared to open up. Maybe he is trying, until eventually she found herself emotionally exhausted all over again, which means the pattern, the cycle has repeated. So this was a different person, but same pain. And that's the part nobody talks about enough. Patterns rarely announce themselves loudly. They disguise themselves as chemistry, attraction, familiarity, and comfort. A lot of people believe attraction is random. They think toxic relationships are just bad luck. But human psychology tells us a very different story. We are naturally drawn towards what feels emotionally familiar to us, right? So even if that familiarity was painful, if you grew up around inconsistency, chaos may feel emotionally normal. Or if love had to be earned, you may unconsciously chase people who make affection feel conditional. If you constantly have to prove your worth growing up, you may, enter relationships where you are always over-explaining, over-giving, over-sacrificing just to feel chosen, just to belong. And this is where, people become really trapped, because they are not necessarily attracted to pain. They are attracted to familiarity. And familiarity feels safe to the brain. But when it damages the heart, that's why some people say healthy love feels boring. Not because healthy love lacks passion, but because peace feels unfamiliar to a nervous system trained to survive. So think about that carefully. Some people grew up in environments where it was easy to predict your emotion, and it was a normal thing for them, right? So one day there was affection, and then the next day there was silence. One moment you feel warmth, and the next moment you feel rejection. So later in life, they unconsciously associate emotional inconsistency with love itself. And when someone stable enters their life, it feels strange. They begin to overprocess it. This person is too calm. This person is too easy. This person is too predictable. So instead of trusting peace, they crave intensity, they crave emotional highs and lows, because chaos became their emotional language. That's why people keep repeating relationship cycles without realizing it. So you call it new name but same lesson, different body but same emotional wound that you have to go through. And social media has made this worse in many ways. You want to know why? We live in a generation where emotional unavailability is romanticized, is mixed signals, and they are called mysterious energy. Bread crumbling is called playing hard to get. That's what social media has done. So bare minimum effort is celebrated because standards have become painfully low. So people normalize emotional neglect while calling it modern dating. But let's tell the truth here today. Red flags are rarely invincible. Most of the time, they are ignored. They are very visible, but they are just ignored. Because loneliness can make warning signs feel very negotiable, the way you negotiate prices in the market, right? So attraction can make disrespect look exciting. Fear of abandonment can make people tolerate behaviors they would normally reject on a normal day, right? So sometimes people stay because they believe toxic attention is better than no attention at all. Where do I start from? What if the person doesn't love me that much? So now the conversation becomes uncomfortable. Now you have to ask yourself very deep questions like, why do I keep choosing emotionally unavailable people? Why do I ignore my intentions in the beginning? Why do I stay after the signs become obvious? Why do I keep trying to heal? People who continue to hurt me, I keep making excuses for them. And healing begins the moment you stop avoiding those questions. One of the hardest things to accept in this whole story sometimes is we betray ourselves long before other people hurt us. Because we ignore boundaries, we ignore red flags, and we tolerate disrespect. We overextend ourselves trying to earn love from people who were never emotionally capable of giving it consistently to us. That's the simple truth. And many people who do this because they secretly believe love must be earned, they go through a lot of suffering emotionally. So some people only feel valuable when they are needed. So they become addicted to fixing broken people. They become emotionally attached to potentials instead of the reality of life. They fall in love with someone who could become instead of someone who will be consistent. And the potential is dangerous because it keeps people emotionally invested in situations that are already harming them. You cannot build healthy love on imagined version of people because it's not realistic. Healing requires you to stop romanticizing potential and start observing patterns. So actions, consistency, emotional unavailability, accountability, communication, these are the things you should look out for. Because attraction alone is never enough to sustain a healthy relationship. And let's talk about something else nobody says or people don't really, emphasize on. Sometimes people are addicted to toxic patterns. They are addicted to emotional validation. They want to feel chosen so badly that they ignore incompatibility entirely. The attention becomes intoxicating. The affection becomes addictive. And when that attention disappears, there is panic, there is chaos. Not necessarily because they lost the person, but because they lost the feeling of being wanted. That's why I keep saying self-worth, it matters. It places value on who you are. Because low self-worth will make people negotiate standards they would normally protect. And it will make them accept inconsistency, disrespect, manipulation, emotional neglect, and confusion while convincing themselves it is love. But healthy love does not constantly leave you anxious. Healthy love does not make you question values every week. Healthy love does not require endless emotional suffering to feel meaningful. And the moment you truly understand that your choices begin to change, you stop chasing people. You stop chasing people who only want temporary access to you. You stop over explaining yourself. You stop looking for unnecessary validation. You stop over explaining your boundaries. So you stop trying to convince emotionally unavailable people to become emotionally available or emotionally safe. Because healed people stop trying to force connections that require self-abandonment. And let me say this carefully, because someone watching this really needs to hear this. Not every connection is meant to be kept. Some people enter your life to expose wounds you never realized were controlling your decisions. So some relationships are mirrors. They reveal your fears, they reveal your insecurities, your attachment wound, your need for validation, your fear of being alone. And painfully as it sounds, awareness is the beginning of freedom from any kind of manipulation. Because once you become conscious of your pattern, you can no longer pretend they are accidental. So that's where transformation actually begins. You begin to notice things earlier. You stop making excuses for emotionally immature behavior. You become more intentional about who gets access to your energy. You stop confusing emotional intensity with emotional intimacy. And slowly, peace becomes more attractive than chaos. Because emotionally healed people do not chase instability anymore. They don't. They choose consistency, clarity, reciprocity, emotional safety. And guess what? They understand that love should feel secure. Love is not confusing. Love is calm. And love is not chaotic. And yes, healing can feel lonely sometimes, very lonely. Because once you stop entertaining toxic dynamics, your dating pool changes. Everything surrounding relationship changes. Your tolerance becomes lower. You stop settling because someone gives you attention or somebody doesn't want to give you attention. No. And loneliness can tempt people to return to old patterns because in their head, in their subconscious, they think that is what serves them. And to the text they know is wrong for them. They revisit emotionally draining relationships because familiarity feels comforting. But growth requires discipline. Emotional maturity requires choosing long-term peace over temporary highs. This is not weakness, my darling. This is self-respect. You are preserving your respect. So if you have been wondering why you keep attracting the same type of persons, maybe the deeper question is this: what emotional patterns inside you still needs healing? I mean, your relationship often reflects what you unconsciously tolerate, normalize, or believe you deserve. That realization is painful, but it is also powerful because now your power shifts back to you. And you begin to ask different questions. Not how do I make them stay, but rather you ask yourself, why am I afraid to leave? Not why don't they love me correctly, but you ask yourself, why am I accepting less than I deserve? And these questions, they change the lives, they change the narrative, they change the pattern. Because you stop trying to be chosen by someone else and you start choosing yourself first. And maybe that is where real healing begins. So tell me honestly, have you ever realized you were repeating the same relationship pattern with different people? Which means same pain, same experience, but with a different person. What lesson did you take so long to learn? I want to hear your story in the comment, because conversations like this help people feel less alone. So if this video spoke to you deeply, save it for the moment you feel tempted to settle again, to settle for less, to settle for the old emotionally traumatizing pattern, and share this with someone who is stuck in an unhealthy, relationship. And subscribe for more conversations about healing, emotional intelligence, psychology, self-worth, and the hidden patterns shaping our lives, because this is where truth is spoken and silence is broken. My name is Letitia Idiri, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye for now.